It having reached the hour of 5:30, I am calling the June 6, 2023 Modesto City Council meeting to order and ask the city clerk to call the roll.
Yes, Mayor, just a short statement. For the record, Councilmember Scutia Brayton is participating remotely under the traditional Brown Act teleconferencing rules. The agenda was properly posted at the remote location as notated on the agenda in compliance with the Brown Act. Vice Mayor Ricky.
Present.
Councilmember Bavaro.
Present.
Councilmember Williams.
Present.
Councilmember Wright.
Here.
Councilmember Scutia Brayton.
Here.
Councilmember Alvarez is absent, and Mayor Zwalin.
Here. Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation from Carlos Gonzalez from City Ministry Network.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good afternoon. Let us pray. Lord, you urge us to pray for all those who are in authority. So today we pray for those on the council. You have blessed them with this great privilege and responsibility. So we pray you give them wisdom, understanding, give them guidance. I pray that through their decisions, those in our city can live a life full of peace and dignity. I pray that through their leadership, Modesto becomes a good place to grow up in and grow old in. I pray you bless them, bless their families, and help them, Lord, lead this city. Thank you because for such a time as this, you have placed them on this council. So give them direction, and may they feel comfortable to turn to you in their time of need. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Councilmember Scutia Brayton, I'm going to ask you to mute if you are not speaking because we're hearing background noise or rumbling.
All right. Okay.
Thank you very much. All right. Does the city clerk have any announcements?
Yes, Mayor, just a reminder, public comment is 3 minutes. There are blue speaker cards at the entrance of the chambers.
All right. Do any of the council members have any conflicts of interest? Seeing none, I will read out my report from closed session. During today's closed session, the City Council conducted the City Manager's performance evaluation. The Council highly values City Manager Lopez and have concluded that he is doing an excellent job. The council looks forward to another successful year working in partnership with Mr. Lopez and his dedicated team. Thank you. First on the agenda is item 1, Certificate of Recognition recognizing Lee Herrick, recently appointed State of California's Poet Laureate. State of California's Poet Laureate. I want to say that again. All right, I will read the proclamation. This will be a certificate. On this day of June 6, 2023, on behalf of the Modesto City Council, I congratulate you on being selected by Governor Newsom as the State of California's Poet Laureate. Your hard work, dedication, and perseverance is to be commended. Would you like to step forward and make a few comments? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Zwollen. This is an incredible honor, and thank you to everyone on the City Council. It's nice to see Nick Bavaro, who I knew when I was a boy. I moved, and I'm going to make a few comments, and then I was asked to read a poem also.
Great.
That's okay.
That would be perfect. It seems appropriate.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't say some very important thank yous. I want to thank Will Wong, who works with the city, for helping to make this happen. Will is a friend that goes way back. My parents live here. We moved here in 1977 from Danville in the East Bay before I was adopted from South Korea. And my parents still live here. My mom couldn't make it tonight, but my dad, Newbie Herrick, I'd like to just point out, there he is, probably my most formative, inspirational role model. My sister, Holly, who taught here for many years in Modesto and now works with the Stanislaus County Office of Education, is here. And my amazing niece, Ella, who attends high school here in Modesto, are both here, Holly and Ella. And my wife, Lisa, my daughter, Sujan, couldn't be here, but my wife, Lisa, is here. So thank you, Lisa. And to the governor's office, of course, and the California Arts Council. Modesto was incredibly formative for me, as you might guess. Long before I was appointed California Poet Laureate, which I could not have imagined when I was a grade school kid here. I went to Stanislaus Union Elementary. I went to Prescott Junior High. And I went to Davis High School. And then I went to Modesto JC, where I had some of the best teachers and professors I could have had anywhere. This is where much of my creative life began, and it remains with me anywhere I travel throughout the state or the country, giving readings or talks. And so I'm very proud to be from Modesto. Everywhere I go, I say that. So thank you for the recognition, and I wish you all the best with the difficult and important work that you do. So
Thank you.
thank you. When I was asked to read a poem, I thought I'd read a poem that I wrote called My California. This is a poem that I wrote thinking about some things I've seen here and things that I've hoped for and imagined. And I'm so used to reading facing them, but I'm going to read like this.
Well, I appreciate that. Since it is a council
It
meeting.
is a council meeting, yes.
It's appropriate to read it to us, and
Yes.
everyone will listen and hear and see you on the screen.
Okay,
So
thank
hope
you.
that helps.
Thank you. My California. Here, an olive votive keeps the sunset lit. The Korean 20-somethings talk about hyphens, graduate school, and good pot. And a group of 4 at a window table in Carpinteria discuss the quality of wines in Napa Valley versus Lodi. Here, in my California, the streets remember the Chicano poet whose songs still bank off Fresno's beer-soaked gutters and almond trees in partial blossom. Here, in my California, we fish out long noodles from the pho with such accuracy you'd know we'd done this before. In Fresno, the bullets tire of themselves and begin to pray 5 times a day. In Fresno, we hope for less of the police state and more of a state of grace. In my California, you can watch the sun go down like in your California, on the ledge of the pregnant 22nd century, the one with a bounty of peaches and grapes, red onions and the good salsa, wine and japchae. Here in my California, paperbacks are free. Farmers markets are 24 hours a day and always packed. The trees and water have no nails in them. The priests eat well. The homeless eat well. Here in my California, everywhere is Chinatown. Everywhere is K-Town. Everywhere is Armenia Town. Everywhere, a little Italy. Less Confederacy. No internment in the valley. Better history texts for the juniors. In my California, free sounds and free touch. Free questions, free answers, free songs from parents and poets, those hopeful bodies of light. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will ask now if there's any comments from council members. Councilmember Bavaro.
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a long time. Lee played on my baseball team when he was a youngster, and haven't seen you since we played that last game many years ago. And that was a beautiful poem.
Thank you.
Very proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me, Mr. Bavaro. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments from council members? All right. Thank you very much. Seeing none at this time, I will bring the certificate down and we will present it to you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all.
Did you guys win that baseball game?
Did you have to ask?
All right, next is item 2, a proclamation declaring June 2023 as LGBTQ plus Pride Month. I will read the proclamation. The City of Modesto recognizes the month of June 2023 as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ plus Pride Month. The City of Modesto observes Pride Month to support the rights of all residents to experience equality and freedom from discrimination. And all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. LGBTQ plus individuals have had immeasurable impact to the cultural, civic, and economic successes of our country, and the City of Modesto is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equality for LGBTQ plus people in our diverse community. And while society at large increasingly supports LGBTQ plus equality, It is essential to acknowledge that the need for education and awareness remains vital to end discrimination and prejudice. And this nation was founded on the principle that every individual has infinite dignity and worth. And the City Council calls upon the people of this municipality to embrace this principle and work to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists. And celebrating Pride Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for the LGBTQ+ community and is an opportunity to take action and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance, and advance equal rights. Now, therefore, I, Sue Zwollen, Mayor of the City of Modesto, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2023 as Pride Month in support of the LGBTQ+ community and recognize all LGBTQ+ residents whose influential and lasting contributions to our neighborhoods make the City of Modesto a vibrant community in which to live, work, and visit. Dated this 6th day of June, 2023. I am under the understanding that accepting this will be Salma Torres from our LGBTQ+ collaborative. Would you like to make a few remarks?
Good evening to the esteemed members of City Council and those who have gathered with us today to recognize June as Pride Month in the City of Modesto. To be completely honest, I'm not sure how I got here. No, I don't mean here as the building I drove over in my car, of course, but I'm talking about the City of Modesto. Being raised as a first-generation queer Mexican-American in the city of Los Angeles, I can't quite say that I ever dreamt about living in the Central Valley as a child. My knowledge of the valley was this: farmlands, UC Merced, and a place no queer individual such as myself should ever visit. But then stuff happened, and the universe did its thing, and like Dorothy and Oz, I found myself here, employed by an LGBTQ+ serving nonprofit in the 19th largest city in California. In my admittedly limited amount of years living here, my experience can be summarized in just one sentence. There's just something about Modesto. The fear and trepidation that I felt as a queer person moving here were immediately wiped away by one of the largest, most active, and most welcoming queer communities that I have ever had the pleasure of not only working with, but being a part of. Part of me associates this with the rustic charm of an idyllic life, but that's not it. I've lived in cities and towns throughout Southern, Central, and Northern California, but no city has ever had a queer community so ready to help, to speak up, and to stand up when it counts the most as the City of Modesto. You see, the LGBTQ+ community has always been a propagator of mutual aid and strong community support when it is needed the most. Those of us who have been rejected and ostracized by society sometimes have no one else to turn to but ourselves. We see this happening repeatedly in LGBTQ+ history, like when the lesbians showed up in the 80s to care for gay men dying of AIDS when doctors and nurses wouldn't. Organizations like For the Girls are raising funds to support Black trans individuals. Mutual aid is to the LGBTQ+ community as sunlight is to flowers. We photosynthesize it into larger, more ornate beauty that we get to share with the broader Modesto community. Organizations like the Rainbow Resource Center and Mo Pride are key partners in our city who seek to provide crucial resources like mental health wellness and social groups, as well as community events for the LGBTQ+ Modestians and allies alike to have a space to meet, socialize, and alleviate their loneliness, even if ever so slightly. Believe me when I tell you that Modesto has a sizable LGBTQ+ population. Even so, it is without a doubt in my mind that we organizations have yet to reach every single LGBTQ+ individual in the city, despite the number of years that we have been serving this community. And it's because they're afraid. Sometimes people are too afraid to live their authentic lives because the hate in the community around them is much too loud. They would rather hide themselves away and not take the risk of directed hatred and bigotry, and I understand them. Sometimes the fear is too overwhelming. It feels like you're alone in a big pond with even bigger fish, and you have to keep your head down to avoid the rest of them, to get by, to survive. But no one should ever have to live in fear of being who they want to be. Every human being is endowed with the right to freedom and the right to happiness, inalienable rights. To those of you still in the shadows, hear me now. I've come to know the city, and there is one truth that holds. Our love is stronger than their hate. Maybe not now or not soon, but whenever you're ready, we're here, waiting with open arms to welcome and embrace you. The LGBTQ+ community here in Modesto is already hard at work, trying to make a difference and create a safer environment through education, advocacy, and equity. Our allies on City Council have demonstrated here with this proclamation that they are ready to back us up. And it is my sincerest wish, as well as the wish of the community members who have gathered here today, to see them follow through with action when it is needed. On behalf of the LGBTQ+ community here in Modesto, we accept this proclamation with joy and honor. It is a beacon of light in a world that at present seems to be so dark and dangerous for the LGBTQ+ community. But we remain undaunted. We can and we will drive out their hate with our love and our action. With this, allow me to be the first to say this year within these chambers, Happy Pride, Modesto. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. All right. All right, are there any comments from council members at this time? Councilmember Ricky, Vice Mayor Ricky.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for those kind words, first of all, but tolerance and diversity, differences, and the ability to wield unique perspectives has always been our country's superpower. And that's why months like what we're doing here with Pride Month, where we are celebrating differences and celebrating also similarities, are just so important to our community. And I think our city has a responsibility to protect and advocate for people who suffer from discrimination, and I appreciate all the things the city has done to support the LGBTQ community. And I'm hopeful that we can continue to push through the hate to find ourselves in a place where everyone is allowed to be the person they want to be without judgment. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I do not see any other comments, so I want to thank you for being here this evening, and I will now bring down the proclamation and present it.
Thank you. And then anyone from the community who wants to join the photo op, get on up here.
Everyone, this is yours. This is yours.
Wonderful speaker.
Come on, my friend. You got no space in there. Wait, can they still see you?
Thank you, everybody. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, and
Everyone say pride. Pride.
I can't up too long after it says that.
When you say encoder, you mean on base. You mean on base.
All right. Next on the agenda is item 3. Consider approving the reappointments of Brock Wiley, Alan Falconer, and Carrie Miller to the Entertainment Commission for a second 4-year term with term expirations of June 30th, 2027. Does council have any questions of staff on item 3? Seeing none, I'll open it up to the public or any members of the public that would like to speak regarding item 3. Seeing none, I'll ask Councilmember Escutia Brayton if there is anyone present at the remote location that would like to comment on this item.
No, Mayor, there is not.
All right, I will close public comments. Any council comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
All right, this is a motion to approve the resolution approving the appointments of Brock Wiley, Alan Falconer, and Carrie Miller to the Modesto Entertainment Commission for an additional 4-year term with term expirations of June 30th, 2027. I have a motion from Councilmember Wright and a second from Councilmember Williams. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Ricky.
Aye.
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Escutia Brayton.
You're on mute, Rosa. Thank you.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwalin.
Aye. Carries 6-0. Item 4, consider the reappointments of Theodore Mills, Randy Clark, James Aha, Mike Rigo, and Jane Manley to the Measure L Citizens Transportation Sales Tax Commission for a second and final 4-year term with term expirations of June 30th, 2025, and the reappointments of Michael Meridian and Patricia Gillum to the Measure L Citizens Transportation Sales Tax Commission for a second and final 4-year term with term expirations of June 30th, 2027. Do I have any questions from, does council have any questions?
No.
Seeing none, I'll open it up to the public. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward regarding item 4? Seeing none, Councilmember Escutia Brayton, is there anyone present at the remote location that would like to comment on this item?
There is not, Mayor.
All right, I will close public comments. Any comments from council? Seeing none, I need a motion for a resolution reappointing Theodore Mills, Randy Clark, James Aha, Mike Rigo, and Jane Manley to the Measure L Citizens Transportation Sales Tax Commission for a second and final 4-year term from July 1st, 2021 to June 30, 2025, and reappointing Michael Meridian and Patricia Gillum to the Measure L Citizens Transportation Sales Tax Commission for a second and final 4-year term from July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2027. I have a motion from Councilmember Williams. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from
Wright.
Councilmember Wright. Will the clerk please call the roll for this item?
Vice Mayor Ricky.
Aye.
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Escutia Brayton.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwalin.
Aye, so it carries 6-0. Item 5, consider recommending the appointment of Equity Commissioner Lindsay Byrd to the Citizens Housing and Community Development Committee for a 2-year term with a term expiration of May 30th, 2025. Does council have any questions of staff? Seeing none, I'll open to the public. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward regarding item 5? Councilmember Escutia Brayton, is there anyone present at the remote location that would like to comment on this item?
No, there is not.
All right, I will close public comments. Any comments from council members? All right, I have a resolution approving the appointment of Equity Commissioner Lindsay Byrd to the Citizens Housing and Community Development Committee for a 2-year term with a term expiration of May 31st, 2025. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
A motion by Councilmember Wright. I will second it, and I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Vice Mayor Ricky.
Aye.
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Escutia Brayton.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwalin.
Aye, carries 6-0. Item 6, consider accepting the resignation of Pam Gusto from the City of Modesto Golf Courses Advisory Committee Does council have any questions of staff? Seeing none, I'll open it to the public. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward regarding item 6? Seeing none, Councilmember Escutia-Brayton, is there anyone present at the remote location that would like to comment on this item?
There is not at this time.
All right, I will close public comments and ask council for comments. Seeing none, I have a resolution accepting the resignation of Pam Gisto from the City of Modesto Golf Courses Advisory Committee. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve?
Motion made by Councilmember Wright, second by Vice Mayor Ricky. Will the clerk please call the roll for this item?
Vice Mayor Ricky.
Aye.
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Escutia-Brayton.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwalin.
Aye, the motion carries unanimously. Next is public comment period. Does anyone wish to speak on any item under public comment? This is for items not on the council agenda. And thank you. Each person has 3, let me read this first. Okay. Each person has 3 minutes. So I will read the names from the blue cards and also take note if there is anyone online, which I see there is one hand raised currently. And we will hear from you. Each person, as I mentioned, will have 3 minutes to speak. First is Tina Perez-Tateo.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. Just want to give you a little update of what's going on this week with Graffiti Week. We wait all year for this week, and I'm just so excited. So just a little update. We started Sunday at McHenry Village, and wow, we had the most cars that we've ever had. I think you were there, Mayor?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, it was just busting at the seams, you know. So that was a great show, and I thank Modesto Area Street Rods for putting that on. They tried a different routine, and it worked. So it got us in and out real quick. So we like to thank them. Second was yesterday at American Chevrolet. Again, with the new owners, they were really receptive and excited. And it was a great show. We had a lot of mixture of cars, lowriders with the hot rodders, and with everything going on with trying to lift the band. You could just see it for yourself. And we could see it, Jerry and I and Betty, the camaraderie, the mixing of both groups, everybody just talking together, and it's just wonderful to see. And it means a great deal to all of us. Today was at the Century Center, and again, I went just for a little while before the meeting. Again, everybody's just coming out of the woodwork, you know, and this is like the real first full year that, you know, everybody's coming out since COVID, and they just want to be, you know, participants. So we're just going around talking to people and kind of telling what we're doing, and everybody's just excited, and you know, for the whole week, you know. So anyway, so just like to thank Mid Valley Chevys for that. They did a great job on organizing that. So we're just waiting for the rest of the week to happen, and we're all looking forward to it, and just that's really about it, you know. So I just want to kind of let you all know that we're having a good time, and thank you all for your support. We really appreciate it. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next online, I see Teresa Kletter.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon. I am here for Paul Chavez, as we are still seeking justice for his death on July 14th, 2022. I also have a suggestion, which I think would be beneficial. I don't know how it would go into place, but anyways, I feel that all police officers should carry professional liability insurance as an individual. And when there is a claim placed on this policy, the policy would pay out whatever the claim may be, or policy limits, or what have you. Eventually, if there's more than a few claims, a couple of claims, and they are deaths or some kind of assault, something, causing injury, then eventually these officers will not be insurable. And once they're not insurable, they can't work. And this would avoid the city and our taxpayers to also be paying out on these situations. So if this could be something that is put on the table, I don't even know how, but I would like you guys to consider it because it does make a lot of sense. Me as an insurance broker, if I have a client that has had several claims, he eventually becomes uninsurable and nobody will touch him because of the liability that's at risk. And officers should not be exempt from that. They don't have accountability, they have immunity. So having them be responsible and having to pay for their own, in the beginning when you first get a policy, it's not that much, but you start putting some claims in, that thing's gonna climb real quick. And then eventually, like I said, they'll be uninsurable and therefore they can't work. And that would solve a lot of the problems. So as always, I will stay faithful for justice for Paul Chavez, who was wrongfully murdered by Sam Muncie and Sergio Valencia. Justice for Paul Chavez. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next in person is Carol J. Welcome.
Thank you. It's the first time I've ever been to this, so I will get through it quickly, hopefully. I've lived here in this region for approximately 56 years. I'm 73 right now, so I've been here for a while. I'm going to start off with the green garbage cans during the fall and through the winter. You have put in place the blue garbage cans, which are picked up every other week. In the fall and the winter, those green garbage cans are completely full every week. So that's not going to work with blue garbage cans. Okay? First of all, those leaves, they go into piles into the streets. They clog the drains that flood the streets, which cause the potholes. Elk Grove doesn't allow any piles in the streets at all. They have to work out some way to end up, whoever cleans their yards up, they have to make sure that all of those things are off the street. Huntington Beach, every 2 weeks, they put up these reminders that all cars have to be off the street for the street sweeper. A vehicle follows and gives tickets. And they have clean cities. We don't. The lawless and the homelessness here is a problem. Case number MP 2300002361, Officer Raymar. My husband and I went to our jewelry store about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. McHenry Village, trying to enter, was being blocked by 2 gang members and a security guard. Well, we didn't know that when we got there. And we found out later that these 2 guys had been trying to rob this handicapped guy, and the security guard ended up taking him down to the bus stop. Well, we get there, didn't know what was going on, but they were blocking the entrance. And Alan beeped the horn, and the one guy had a small bike. He threw it down and started talking obscenities to us. I said, please move, please move. And he called me a white bee, and I know you know the rest of it, probably 4 times. Anyway, thank God there was a security guard there, and he ended up getting between our car when he moved him over, and we tried to end up getting in. He came over and he swung at Alan, and the security guard got in the way. All I saw from my vantage point was his arm coming around the back of the security guard. 4 police officers finally came, and we ended up having this discussion with them. They didn't go looking for the guy. Nothing was done. All they did was take down and gave us this information right here.
All right, your time is up.
The bakery that's over there, the next week we went in, guess what? 4 police cars down there, and it was robbed. So something needs to be done.
Thank you. Next online, Brittany Chavez.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm the wife of Paul David Chavez Jr., also known as CJ. I'm calling in because there's still no accountability. You have an officer who has killed more than once. The second killing that he has done was unjustifiable, unlawful. I don't understand why there can't be any accountability. The chief of police needs to hold his officers accountable, or he needs to be held accountable by you guys. Sam Muncie needs to be fired and prosecuted. Because if it was a regular civilian, they would be. Valencia needs to be prosecuted for wrongfully tasing my husband. They didn't even identify who he was. None of it makes sense. Even when you watch the video, it doesn't make sense. You get called to de-escalate a situation, and he's sleeping on a lawn, and then within 26 seconds, knowing that he was intoxicated, he gets wrongfully tased, wrongfully shot, not once, but twice. Tells me that the officer's trigger happy. So you got a murderer on the police force who's trigger happy. Why couldn't the one shot be the one shot? Because he had a personal vendetta. Because that same officer was with my husband 3 weeks prior. He knew him. He took that call and he knew exactly what he was doing. When you look at the video and you look at him, you clearly see the way his stance is, how he's talking, and what he does within 26 seconds. How does that, I can't even get my kids to be quiet in 26 seconds. And my kids act crazy. But my husband, who was being woken up, knowing that he was intoxicated, so you're talking to a man who's intoxicated, doesn't know where he's at, what's happening, what's going on, and the way you guys, the way the cops handled it was, oh, well, you didn't listen. Do you guys listen when you guys drink? I mean, God forbid anything happen at a bar. Don't send him over there because, you know, 3rd, 4th, 5th, how many kills is it going to take for you guys to finally be like, yeah, he is trigger happy. Yeah, he is a murderer. It's not justifiable. He needs to be fired and prosecuted immediately. I'm not going to ever stop. I'm going to keep going to these things, calling in. And Walt, Sam Muncie, and everybody else who's a part of whatever it is that my lawyer's doing, you're on borrowed time. Justice for Paul Chavez.
All right, thank you. Next in line is Nick Blom. Welcome.
All right, thank you, Mayor, council members. Many of you know me. I wear a lot of hats in the community, just as you all do. We all are involved. That's why you guys are in those seats and why I sit in the seats that I do. I come here on behalf of the West Side and Modesto High in particular. We just want to keep in your guys' mind the old Muni golf course. We're really kind of looking at making another asset to this community, adding a football stadium for the namesake of the city's high school, the oldest high school in town. The last time we were here a couple weeks ago, someone said, well, they could just buy some ground next to the school. Well, we all know that's pretty much impossible to do. The opportunity to have something like this the amount of acreage that it's available next to the school in the old Muni, this opportunity, once it's gone, this will never happen again. It's a great time to do something. And those of us that are involved in this, we're not saying it's one or the other. This is what we want. This is what we have to have. No, we understand it's a huge area. There is some need for low-income housing in that area. And 52 acres, I believe, is the size of the Muni Golf Course, is more than enough to have some housing as well as a stadium. You look at things like the Gallo Center, McKinney Mansion, Museum, any other, Mary Grogan Park on the north side of town. They're gems to this city. And another football stadium, speaking with some of the council members, if we had a football stadium there that we could also play soccer, we've got a professional baseball stadium right next door, the opportunity to use the same parking lot, utilize it wisely. You could have a soccer stadium inside this stadium as well. Maybe there's an opportunity to have a professional soccer team. I mean, soccer is just exploding in our country. It's just bigger and bigger every time. It's good to keep kids active. They got to have a place to go. Out there on Robertson Road, they built some soccer fields there. They're busy all the time. Go out into Ceres along River Road. The soccer fields are packed. And I think something like this in the community where the kids can go and enjoy it and be safe, it's something that's vital for the West Side. And it's not just for Modesto High School. The stadium can be used by anyone in the city if it's a joint venture between Modesto City and Modesto City Schools, which, Mayor, you know very well. And the community is willing to help as well. We're not here complaining. We just want to keep it in the forefront of your guys' minds and know that there are people out here to help any way that we can.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next online, I see Patrick Worley.
Hello?
Hello.
Hey, so you guys know what I'm here for. It just amazes me that no one on the council, not Vice Mayor Ricky, not you, Sue, no one has addressed this. No one has said, I'm sorry for your losses. I'm sorry for what happened to you, because it would just put a blemish on you guys' political careers. I know you guys are all career politicians or plan to be. What amazes me is that Paul, we all know the circumstances. Brittany and Teresa said everything prior to me, so you guys heard all that. I don't have to get into all that, but it just amazes me the recklessness of Modesto police and even people sitting up there where you guys are sitting. It almost makes me want to get into politics just so I can, make Modesto great again, because it's not great. It's terrible. I live by Yosemite. I drive down the street. Man, it's scary. It's scary. It's embarrassing. And nobody's doing anything about it. But we have police officers killing people, costing millions, 7.5 recently. And all this can be avoided if you guys just hire better cops. They're out there. When I was about, 21, I watched a Hayward police officer kill a friend of mine. His name was Randy. I think just police in general can get a little trigger happy. It's bad. But, I've been waiting to get pulled over just so I can get a gun pulled on me. I got tattoos. I look like I'm on the wrong side of the law, even though I'm not. And, yeah. So I just want to add that Teresa had a great suggestion about the insurance policy for the officers. I mean, that is the most brilliant thing I've heard in a very long time. Will it be considered? Absolutely not, because it's going to put a blemish on your guys' political careers. We know that. So, I'll end it with everybody up there, all you guys, it's sad. You guys are sick. That's it.
All right, next in person is Loretta C.
Thank you. I'll try, but first of all, I'd like to say one thing.
Can you speak right into
Totally
the
different.
microphone? There you go.
Yeah, you guys know of this one. I myself have had a bunch of thefts at my home, and yes, some policemen have come to my home. But police have got a job to do. They've definitely got a job to do. But people in this city need help on lots of things. But what I'd like to tell you guys about, and some of you don't ride the buses, but some of you do. But this week, I've seen something at the bus station that I got so blasted mad at, I wanted to kick somebody. And she happens to be someone that works for the city bus line. I've not told her, but I wish somebody would. There is no smoking whatsoever down near that bus station. None at all. And you guys are attorneys. If you know this to be true, I want you to please put something up to where there's no smoking whatsoever. I'm always growling about the new kids putting their shoes on those seats and drinking on the bus. And yes, I tell them directly. I haven't gone to her. And yes, I've got enough guts too now since I stopped all my medicine I was taking that made me drunk all the time. And lots of people don't realize medicine can definitely do it to people. Because whenever I've got a lot of medicine on me, I can sit there and cuss you from top to bottom and not remember one bit of it. And if there's an illness like that and nobody, including police, doctors, or no one believes you, and a pharmacist told me the other day why they don't believe it. Because if they do anything about it, by gollies, we won't have any medicine, and we won't have any money to pay the doctors. Well, anyway, if you guys can please do something about that smoking down there by people who work for us, either don't let them work or do something to them. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next, Ramon Rodriguez.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say a few things about Pride. Pride is not just Pride parades, rainbow flags, or this Pride sale things that happens every June. Pride is not just that. Pride is a fight for freedom, equality, and liberation since 1969. And it goes further than that, because nowadays the LGBTQ community wants your full support to stand up against hate and bigotry now more than ever, because some states are passing laws that are stripping away their civil liberties and rights, that it's going to harm a lot of LGBTQ folks, especially the youth, which for numerous studies shown that LGBTQ youth are more vulnerable in mental health issues, including up to suicide. And this is not really good, because you have an empowered group of people who claims they are for freedom law. We've seen it during the pandemic where they want to reopen everything. But since the pandemic is over, they started to blame the LGBTQ community for all the problems, especially claiming that they're grooming and sexualizing children. And That is not right. Every time I seen this online, I get really upset. I get really mad. I just want to do something to prevent this from happening because these words, what it's happening, all hateful words, it's close to the level of genocide. And we've seen it in history before in the 1930s in Germany. And I said earlier at the Board of Supervisors meeting that the LGBTQ community, especially the youth, they have to be protected at all times, and they need to have their dignities, their freedoms, and their rights respected. This is why every year when you have individuals like Don Grunman and Melinda Mason coming and spewing their hatred, the community stands up against them, and we drive them out. We drive out their hate with love. And if they're going to come around and start spewing hate, saying the LGBTQ community is just promoting pedophilia and all this hateful stuff, we're going to show up and tell them that their hate is not welcome at Modesto, their hate is not welcome in the county, and especially not welcome anywhere. So we want to make Modesto an inclusive, a respectful, and a safe haven for our marginalized groups. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next in person, it says Riley. Riley, I think maybe they left, possibly. All right, I do not see anyone else online. Is there anyone in person that would like to address us on public comment, which is for items not on the agenda? All right, please step to the podium.
Hey, how you doing today, Council? My name's Liberty. I'd like to say thank you very much for making June the official Pride Month recognized by Modesto. I was unaware of a lot of the stuff that people are upset about here, that they bring up by the community, and I'm aware there's a lot of police violence. All I wanted to say was, if you guys need something to read, like maybe to kind of gather perspective on possibly why things are the way they are, if you haven't read it yet, consider reading the 1619 Project. It's a very good book. There's also a children's version of it if you wanted to get a little bit of a short version of it. That's pretty much it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other members of the public that would like to speak?
Good evening. How are you all doing tonight? Just like to say that September last year, I got billy clubbed, and I think pretty much I know Sue knows about it and several people. I have been trying to convict this guy for the last year, or since September last year. It's time I get busy, okay? So I'm going to take it to court myself. I'm not going to ask the district attorney. I will have public people come there, and I will get this guy arrested. When you get billy club in 9th Street and D Street and you're trying to work on it and they don't take this guy and put him in custody and they even spell my name, it becomes a big issue, real issue. We're sitting on September, I've been working on this. We still have no convictions. Every time I go to the police department, they want to open and close the case, open and close it, open and case it. We got ears and eyes with the police department that can just go do this kind of stuff and sweep it under the carpet. I'm not going to let the guy get away with it. Okay, that's personally my fellow. Salvation Army should be involved in this too as well, you know, and they're not. And I asked for the guy to have a citizen's arrest at that time, and he fled the scene and everything. I asked for an investigation. No private investigator or detective called me and got a bit of it. The captain's aware of it, and a lot of other people. There's probably 15 reports on this. I'm still getting hassled by the guy. I got to walk these streets with me and my family. I'm going to move out of this county, okay? And I'm hoping I'm going to have protection until that point to get out of Stanislaus County because I can't take it. I got family back out of another county that I can go to and live with them and live peacefully. This is unjustifiable and it needs to get taken care of. I will take it to court and I am going to win this case. And once I win this case, I'm not only going to submit it to you guys, I'm going to submit it to everybody and to the media and everybody to let them know how the justification. You talk about the police department and you tell them that you get all these freebies or that you're talking about and all this money put for Salvation Army in it. You only got one camera up there. The only two cameras you got up there is the two cameras that are in front, going into the door in the front and in the back, low barrier and high barrier. That's it. That's all you have. And everybody knows that. And there's so much crime happening around there and drugs and alcohol, it's unreal. And for you to just let people stand in air conditioning for 18 months, 2 years there, and not do anything about it and take and roll this place, that was never designed to do that to begin with Salvation Army, okay? That was designed to put everybody through to turning point, get them in, get what they got to get done in the paperwork, all that stuff. Thank God we have the street team that's been helping out with everybody that's doing the best that they could do what they could do. But it's not enough. This was done years ago, was grants, everything done. I was there when you guys cut the ribbon and was proud to have that low barrier done and everything, and nothing's getting done. You guys, they're just going to keep staying there smoking the cigarettes, doing dope. You got air conditioning all day you could stay in, you know. Supposedly they're going to start a day room there, which I think's great, but I haven't heard any other anything less than that or over that. But something's got to be done. And nobody's helping me out. Victim service units, I'm going to get on the agenda. I'm going to have them come in here and tell them what I think about them, because I got no protection or nobody to help me.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Howard Carmen.
Okay. All right. Council Member Escutia Brayton, is there anyone present at your location that would like to provide public comment?
I do not see anyone wishing to make a public comment at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to come forward here to speak under public comment? Seeing none. Next on the agenda is consent items. An item may be removed from consent and discussed at the request of a member of the public or council member. Is there anyone on the council that would like a consent item removed for further discussion? Seeing none, is there anyone in the public that would like an item removed from consent for further discussion or comment? All right. I will confirm that we have no one online with their hands raised. Zoom, no one online. Anyone in your location, Councilmember Escutia Brayton?
No one, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Will the city clerk please read the consent items?
Item 7, consider approving the minutes from the May 23rd, 2023 council meeting. Item 8, consider approving final adoption of ordinance 3764 CS, amending section 2 of ordinance number 2795 CS, entitled an ordinance amending section map 31-3-9 of the zoning map to rezone from low-density residential to planned development 487, property located on the north side of Chicago Avenue between Franquette and Floret Avenues, west of Paradise Road, Matthews/Fabian. Item 9, consider approving the recommended budget adjustments to fiscal year 2022-2023 annual operating and CIP budgets. Item 10, consider accepting an informational report for the April 2023 accounts payable payment register and void report. Item 11, consider accepting the monthly investment report for March 2023. Item 12, consider approving a change in the interest rate index for the Modesto Irrigation District Financing Authority Domestic Water Project Revenue Bond Series 2007F and the related interest rate swap and authorizing payment of costs. Item 13, consider approving payment of various equipment maintenance agreements for fiscal year 2022-2023 with multiple equipment manufacturers for all city departments for an annual cost not to exceed $896,155 and authorizing the city manager or his designee to execute the equipment maintenance agreements associated with the items in Exhibit B, fiscal year 2023-2024 equipment maintenance agreements more than $50,000. Item 14, consider approving the city's pandemic recovery strategy, Modesto Forward, for the reallocation of ARPA funds defined under Exhibit A. Item 15, consider approving the fiscal year 2023-2024 appropriations limit, which is an annual spending limit calculation that identifies a maximum amount appropriations for publicly funded programs. Item 16, consider approving the payment of software maintenance support agreements for fiscal year 2023-2024 for a total amount not to exceed $6,435,813. Item 17, consider affirming the city's in-kind sponsorships identified in Administrative Directive 3.6 and approving community and special event sponsorships with direct contributions to the King Kennedy Memorial Center Board of Directors increase, National Association for the Advancements of Colored People, Modesto/Stanislaus Branch, the Hot Wheels Foundation of Modesto, California, West Modesto Community Collaborative, Downtown Modesto Partnership, the Miracle League of Stanislaus County, and Veterans in Community Advocacy. Item 18, consider approving the First Amendment to the lease agreement with Del Rio CC Foundation out of Modesto for a lease of property located on Roselawn Avenue, APN 037036007 and 037051001 for the operation of First Tee Youth Programming. Item 19, consider approving a First Amendment to the agreement with Brown and Caldwell out of Rancho Cordova, California for design and construction support services for the Grayson Well 69 replacing Well 274 project for a revised agreement amount not to exceed $277,601 and approving an increase in the director's authority to issue change orders for the construction contract with W.M. Lyles Company out of Fresno from 10% to 15% of the original construction contract amount of $2,683,800. Item 20, consider approving a progressive design build agreement with Telstar Instruments, Inc. out of Concord for supervisory control data acquisition SCADA system replacement project for a total amount not to exceed $2,947,531 and approving a technical advisor services agreement with EMA Inc. of Tucson, Arizona for a total amount not to exceed $406,663. Item 21, consider approving a sole source agreement with Westlake Corporations out of Houston, Texas for the procurement of AccuTab chlorination tablets and related equipment for a total amount not to exceed $650,000 over 5 years. Item 22, consider approving renaming Modesto's water quality control facilities in the City of Modesto Regional Waters Recycling Facility, Sutter Campus, and City of Modesto Regional Water Recycling Facility, Jennings Campus. Item 23, consider approving the purchase of a closed-circuit television CCTV camera and transporter from Rapid View LLC at Rochester, Indiana, under the authorized dealer Jack Doney Company, JDC, at Northville, Michigan, for a total amount not to exceed $88,161. And item 24, consider approving the sole source asset number 20155-00 JWC compactor with auger and grinder to the City of Manteca for $6,500.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move to approve.
Have a motion by Vice Mayor Ricky. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wright. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Ricky?
Aye.
Councilmember Scutia-Brayton?
Aye.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Councilmember Wright?
Aye.
And Mayor Zwalin?
Aye. Carries 6-0. Next on the agenda is council comments.
I apologize. I inadvertently skipped Councilmember Bavaro. Sorry, I was reading too fast.
That's okay. Aye.
All right, now I can say it. Carries 6-0. Next on the agenda is council comments and reports. Do any of the council members have any comments and reports? Councilmember Wright.
No, but I will comment that we got graffiti weekend all this week. I have the privilege tomorrow morning going to pick up Mackenzie Phillips at the Sacramento Airport. Will be our guest of honor. Help me with
Graffiti car show?
Yeah, well, she's going to be our
Grand Marshal.
Grand Marshal,
Grand
that's the
Marshal?
word. Okay,
Yay.
that's why I was looking for Grand Marshal. So it's going to be a great weekend. Temperature's supposed to be like 80 degrees on Friday, so it's going to be a beautiful time on McHenry. And bring the kids out and look at all the great cars.
All right.
That's exciting.
Councilmember Bavaro.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 reports. The first one, yesterday, as you know, as council members and the mayor, we receive a lot of calls from our constituents concerning issues in the district and seeking assistance from us to get those issues resolved. Yesterday, and I have permission to use his name, Dan Morris called me and was actually calling to compliment the Public Works Department. They had contacted Public Works on a particular issue they had at their home. That day, received a call back, and people from Public Works went out and took care of whatever issue we had. And that's the first time I received a call from somebody actually saying thank you for your city staff in Modesto, and you should be proud of the Public Works Department. So I'll take that one. And congratulations to our director, Bill. Also, last Friday, I did a ride-along with the K-9 unit here in Modesto. K-9 officer Lockridge and his partner. It's named after an airplane, but it's Strata. Is that how you pronounce that? And gave me a great understanding of the police work the K-9 units do. Officer Lockridge was, as I expected, very professional, courteous, and took time to talk with people in a polite manner. And it was my fourth ride-along, and since I've been on the council. And there was one item he had in his police car that I wonder if the police chief can get for us here on the council. It's called an Opticon, is that correct? Opticon, or it's a button, if you have a code 3, it's between a code 3 and you need to be somewhere quick. And as you're driving, you hit that button and the light turns green. Is that called an Opticon? Opticon. So if you have any extras, I'd like one. That's my report, Mayor.
All right. Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. If Councilmember Bavaro keeps going on a ride-along, we need to hire another police officer, I think. Are you interested, Bavaro?
I wouldn't get past the test.
You wouldn't pass the test. First and foremost, last week was Memorial Day weekend, and it was Memorial Day on Monday. And I was privileged to be in the presence of some of who served in the 5 branches as we took time to reflect on those who gave the ultimate sacrifice, and that was their lives. Not only did it affect them, but it affected their children, their wives, their spouses, and whatnot. And so I think it would only be fitting, even though it's past that point, that, Mayor, if it's okay, if we just had a moment of silence.
Sure.
Thank you, and God bless America. Moving right along to what I also want to say is thank you to the City of Modesto for always supporting the North Modesto Kiwanis Club. Having been a member of them for 20 years and past Lieutenant Governor of Kiwanis, it's a wonderful thing to see that the city rallies behind the good things that take place in our community. I understand that not everyone is a car enthusiast, nor do they like the carbon monoxide that it brings on those particular times and weekends. But we look forward to having a wonderful time on Friday, which will start at 6 o'clock down McHenry. There's a loop around the downtown corridor area. If you want to find out more about it, just go to northmodesto.com, northmodestokiwanis.com, to get the rest of that information. We do want to have a safe event where no one gets hurt, there is no drunkenness, and people get home safely after a wonderful time of showing off some of the finest cars in Northern California. I also want to say thank you to John Sanders, who started this, who is a Kiwanian from North Modesto Kiwanis, and is the chair, had been the chair, passed it on to Brent Burnside, who has taken on this huge task of putting the parade together, as well as the event that we have 2 days over at MJC West, which is the car show itself. There is an entry fee that you can, if you want to participate in the car show. However, the parade is already full. We will have about 1,000 cars going down the McHenry and the loop of the downtown area in a safe and the right manner. Also want to say thank you to Charlie Christensen, who is responsible for that parade portion of this event, and all of the North Modesto Kiwanians that will be working diligently to raise money to put back in this community. So thank you, North Modesto Kiwanis, for everything you've done.
All righty, Vice Mayor Ricky?
Oh, thanks, Mayor. Improving our parks is a real priority of mine, and I just want to see our parks transformed from a lot of them being unused spaces or kind of homeless day camps to community spaces that are used throughout our districts for things like food trucks, outdoor patio bistros, farmers markets, fancy boutiques, flea markets, or bocce ball and horseshoe tournaments, among many, many other ideas. And we can do it all. We just need to set up the infrastructure to organize it. I'm really looking forward to kind of working with staff and trying to put some of these new ideas forward to make our parks better utilize community spaces. I'm also really pleased to see that an abandoned commercial building ordinance will be heading to committee this month. This is something I've been working on for the last 2 years, and I'm thrilled to see this new tool that our community needs so badly is kind of might be finally put in place. And our community really has had to put up with too many abandoned buildings for far, far too long. Finally, Summers here, as my colleagues have been mentioning, it's always a great time here in Modesto. This year's no different. Of course, it's Pride Month. We celebrated that today, but Mo Band is also launching on Thursday, and it'll run every Thursday through mid-July in Griseda Park. And Friday, as Councilmember Williams was saying, is the annual graffiti parade. That'll be on McHenry and in downtown Modesto. I'll be riding with Jerry in his 76 Trans Am while channeling my inner Smokey and the Bandit. So, thanks, Mayor.
All right, Councilmember Scooty Brayton.
Thank you, Mayor. I, as is obvious, am remote. I am presently in Detroit, Michigan. I'm attending a national conference and board meeting for the National Association of Regional Councils. We are addressing multiple issues important to our region and definitely important to Modesto as well. Issues such as transportation safety, greenhouse gas strategies, how to address them, downtown redevelopment, public safety, and emergency management response systems. I personally was a speaker on the subject of effectively communicating your city's values, uniqueness, and qualities through rebranding and storytelling. So it's been a great experience being able to promote and tote Modesto's beauty and uniqueness, and also learn from individuals throughout the U.S. on how they run their city. And Detroit has done a great job of really transforming and redeveloping their city from a very challenged city to a much more city-friendly city. They have a lovely river walk, and I've been sharing with some members of the council and our city clerk some of the projects that I've toured and witnessed. And what's interesting is we are multiple cities throughout the U.S. We are more similar than we are different, so we could learn from each other. And that's oftentimes what the nuggets in attending these out-of-city trips that we learn. But in addition to this trip, since the last time the council has convened, I've been busy attending. I attended an opening for a multiple unit of living space that's happening in northern Modesto. That's very exciting. I also met with developers wishing to add more than 500 units of housing in East Modesto. Again, that's being explored and worked on. Again, very exciting. Met with several other elected local officials throughout the state of California, talking about how we can learn from each other and make our cities more safer and have a stronger economy and dealing with like issues. Again, collaborating and learning from each other so that we can make our cities even better. Looking forward to all the activities, as my colleagues have said, that are coming up with MoBand. That is such a beauty that we have in Modesto every Thursday. Really looking forward to taking my family to that. And of course, participating in what makes Modesto so unique, and that is the graffiti activities. So lots of buzz, lots of excitement. It's a really, I'm just delighted to be in Modesto at this time. So thank you for your time.
All right. I will just mention a couple things. On Memorial Day, I was able to honor our veterans at Acacia Memorial Park with our police chief, Brandon Gillespie, was there, and also Councilmember Williams. And it's a very sweet event. I encourage anyone to attend when you can. A lot of veterans attend, and it's just a nice, short, but wonderful remembrance of those who truly did give the ultimate sacrifice. And then, as was mentioned, I was at the McHenry Village Car Show, the Modesto Area Street Rod Association. My understanding, I think I was told there was 500 cars there. It was definitely larger than I've ever seen it before. I go every year to make my mayor's choice, and it's really fun. There are a lot of beautiful cars, a lot of beautiful people that put a lot of time into those cars. And our fire chief, Alan Ernst, was also there. So I'm grateful that our city leaders support our community the way that they do, and it was good to see everybody out. So that's it for me. Is there any other comments or reports from council members? Seeing none, does the city manager have any comments and reports?
Yes, just real quick, Mayor. I just want to thank you, Mayor, and the council for the kind words during my evaluation. It's truly an honor to be the city manager for this wonderful city and to work for such a caring city council who want to do so much good for our community. And while this evaluation was specific to me, it really is a reflection of a collective effort between us and between our staffs. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge our tremendous department head team and the dedicated staff who serve our residents each and every day. This is truly a team effort for the betterment of our community. And again, I'm really proud to be the city manager of this city. Thank you.
Thank you for your words and for your service. Next on the agenda is hearings. Item 25, a hearing to consider and approve the final proposed fiscal year 2023-24 operating and multi-year budget and capital improvement program for the city and related resolutions. And we will have a staff report. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm glad this is the only item on here. We have a 150 slide presentation to go. No, I'm just kidding. It'll be short and sweet. This is my favorite time of the year when we get to go through the budget adoption. Better time than my birthday every year. So we're going to go ahead and start it off with the city manager's opening remarks.
But not May the 4th, Steve. Let's just be honest.
Better than that.
Oh, come on.
This is the budget adoption.
I've seen your costumes.
Come on.
Okay, I'm sorry. We'll be serious here for a second. All right. Thanks, Steve. Over the last few years, this presentation explained the dire trajectory of our budget and the devastating effects on service delivery to our residents. Thanks to the bravery and leadership of this city council to unanimously support placing Measure H on the ballot, and the tremendous trust and support shown by the voters that overwhelmingly approved Measure H, this year's budget is much different. This year's budget represents many of the hopes and dreams that our residents have long held for making a better Modesto, and not just a list of cuts, half measures, and bandages to simply balance a tight budget. Although we are gratified to have the support of the residents and voters, this is not a time for celebration. Measure H comes with an enormous responsibility to allocate these funds in a manner approved by the voters. I take this responsibility seriously, and I believe the proposed spending plan directly relates to the issues described in the ordinance. To reward our residents and voters for their trust, We focused early on with quick wins that deal with some of the nagging issues our residents have long been complaining about. Issues such as blight, tree maintenance, roads, potholes, and finally making the much needed repairs to our dilapidated parks so our community can enjoy them once again. But this is not a one-year plan. We need to deal with long overdue preventative and deferred maintenance. Our goal is to create a sustainable spending plan that will deal with these ongoing expenses while putting this city on the path of financial resiliency. Today is a new day in the city of Modesto, and I'm excited to share our plan to finally provide the high level of service that our community expects and deserves. And with that, I'll turn it to Steve.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit of a recap of our budget process timeline. So in the October-March timeframe, that's when we really start developing the budget. The departments go through and they build their operating budgets. They build their capital and non-capital budgets. And then we go through and we refine their operating budgets. So they kind of look at the initial budgets, where we're starting at. Then we look at where we need to make any adjustments to that. So operating budgets, refining internal service fund budgets, really hone those in. In April, we have the Finance Committee budget workshops, which many of you are a part of. We present the draft budget, and we go through that. We have a number of presentations. We did the Measure H spending plan. Those meetings were held April 17th through the 19th. And that's really when the first look of the draft budget is given to members of the Finance Committee and then council members as well. In May, the mayor's final budget modifications and the combining of the draft budget into the proposed budget occurs. And then we also set the budget adoption hearing date, which is today. Today, June, that's today, we are doing the adoption of the proposed budget. And then in July 1st, we'll have the start of the new fiscal year. So all that seems like a blur to me now, as I'm sure it does to the departments, but quite a lengthy process that we go through. I forgot about that graphic. So now I kind of want to go through the main part, I wouldn't say the main part, but a focal point of our budget process, which is the general fund. So this is our main discretionary funding of the budget, the general fund. This is a look at the pro forma. So you can see 3 years of prior year actuals, 1920, 2021, really the pandemic years, 21, 22, when we started to come out of that pandemic. Our current budget in the red there, 22, 23, actuals through the end of May, and then our proposed budget. One of the things I do want to point out as we go through this, the bottom line there and the total revenues, you can see not much of an increase. It looks like when you're going from 175.1 million to 178.1. Part of that is because in 22-23 we did receive the ARPA funds. So those are going away. No more ARPA funds. So we are seeing recovery in our terms of our revenue from those pandemic years. Property tax, sales tax, business license mill tax, transient occupancy tax, all showing increases. So those are positive things. There are some downsides. Our cannabis tax revenue is decreasing from where we had projected it in prior years. So you've heard me talk about this in the workshops. Other times, a lot of that has to do with kind of reaching that point of saturation in the market and some other factors as well. But really, I think it's a saturation that's having an effect in the area and other places in the community opening up the cannabis retail businesses as well. Overall, good picture though on the revenue side. Overall increases of about 2% on the revenue growth. On the expenditure side, same type of periods that we're looking at here. On the last column, our expenditure growth is outpacing our revenue growth. So that's still kind of the issue that we're seeing into the new fiscal year. Overall expenditure growth is 4%, so higher than our revenue growth. You can see areas of growth in police and fire are probably the bigger areas that we're seeing growth. A lot of our growth is being contributed to our pension cost, but there are growth in discretionary costs as well. So inflation is impacting it, cost of parts, increases in contracts that we have. So inflation is being something that we're monitoring as we go forward and project this year's budget, or excuse me, 23-24's budget and beyond as well. One of the things you will notice on here in the last line above the total department expenses, there is a recommended department adjustments, and we'll talk about that more as we go in the through the presentations. So there were some non-Measure H adjustments that were included as part of this budget. So there were some increases that we'll go through the detail as we go through this presentation. This is just showing the reserves of the general fund. So again, a recap of the revenues and expenses in the proposed budget year. You'll see that there is a deficit. So that's kind of the structural deficit that we've talked about in the past and through the workshops. Of about 6.1 million. Now, I don't want you to think this is something that, oh, we're just going to have a structural deficit, we're not going to do anything about it in the future. This is something that we're always going to continue to look at and continue to look at lowering as we go through the budget process every year. This is the lowest structural deficit number or deficit number that we've had in the probably past, I'd say, probably 5 or 6 years. So this amount has gotten lower over time. And this is something that we'll continue to refine. We scrub the budget every year, departments do every year. We go through line item detail every year to make sure we're not overspending on discretionary budgets where we don't need to unnecessarily. So our goal is to keep lowering this as we go through every budget process to continue to lower that dollar amount. On the reserve level funding, you can see on the committed for emergency reserves, we have about 18.4 million at this time. The goal is to get to 2 months of general fund expenditures. That's the recommended by the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association. That's the recommended level for the general fund. To get to that level, we're looking at about 24 million at this time. So we have some work to do there. We'll talk about the change to the general fund reserve policy or the unassigned carryover policy that we recommend going forward with during this budget process cycle. For the non-Measure H proposed adjustments, so 2 categories here in the general fund and the non-general fund areas. In the general fund, that's where we're talking about that 473,000 increase to the expenditure budget. There were some items that were included as part of that number. So you can see we have some increases to the various departments in the general fund, city manager's office, CED. There are some positions there for a business analyst, development services technician, and admin analyst. In the finance department, there are some additional positions as well. Those positions are being offset by increases to revenue, so there's a net cost of 0 for those additional positions. The fire department, there's a reorg for the fire chief reorganization, so there's a minimal cost there because there are some positions that are being reclassified. And then in Parks and Rec, there is a programming additions to Recreation Division and then additional funding for the Youth Commission project. And then in the non-general fund, there are some additions as well. So you see some additions to the Finance Department, Parks and Rec, and Public Works. Public Works are some additions to the curbs, gutter, and sidewalk, so concrete recycling, operators, and then there are some additions to the fleet area as well for the fleet heavy equipment mechanic. And again, those are non-general fund on the bottom half of this chart. So talking about the reserves, so the general fund reserves carryover, we're making or proposing an amendment to the policy So right now, the reserve policy for unassigned general fund reserves. So this is not talking about the current money that we have in general fund reserves for emergency reserves. This is the unassigned reserves. So any additional reserves at the end of the fiscal year, if we have a surplus. Typically, we have a surplus at the end of the year. So at the end of this fiscal year, we're anticipating there'll be a surplus. So let's say there's $2 million. Well, let's use an easy number here. $3 million at the end of the year as general fund unassigned reserves. The current policy would state that 1/3 of that would go to emergency reserves, 1/3 of it to the pension trust, and then 1/3 to deferred maintenance. So we'd put $1 million to each of those pots. The amendment to this would be that we would change it to a 1/4 policy with the creation of this new innovation fund. So we would now split that into 1/4 into each of these pots. This innovation fund was an idea, and I will give credit to Councilmember Vice Mayor Chris Rickey. He brought up the idea that maybe we have an innovation fund, and all the council members, and we all thought it was a great idea, that we would have set aside one of these reserve pots to put towards additional funding for things for the city of Modesto that would move forward for projects that would change the city of Modesto. So maybe it's for a innovative homelessness product or innovative economic development project. Maybe a business wants to come to town and we need some seed money for developing land for that business. It'd be council's decision for that. So council would decide on what to do with those funds. But it'd be putting these general fund unassigned reserves into this pot of funding to be set aside at council's discretion to make that decision. So that's the change in the reserve policy that we're proposing. So again, we'd still be putting away money to emergency reserves, the pension trust, and deferred maintenance, but we'd add this additional category for an innovation fund. Okay. Moving on to the Measure H overview. One thing I do want to say on the emergency reserves. So part of that, you have to know what money we have. We would bring that back once we have our comprehensive annual financial report completed. That would let us know how much in emergency reserves we would have. That's typically done in January, February at the end of the year. So for this, it would be January, February of 2024. And then we would bring an item back to council for council to make the decision of how much money we're putting into each of those pots. So for the Measure H overview, so again, just to recap, Measure H was voted on by the voters. It was passed November 8th. It's the 1 cent sales tax for general city services. All of that revenue comes to the city of Modesto. None of it is split off to the state, the county, or any other area. It all comes to the city of Modesto. It was certified by the council. The sales tax collection started April 1st of 2023. The annual revenue that we're estimating is about $41.8 million, and now this will increase as sales tax increase revenue comes in. It'll go up every year in terms of sales tax just growing annually. The initial quarter that we received from April to June, we're estimating about $10 million, so we should actually be getting our first payment in June for that first month of revenue for April. We had an initial spending plan that the city manager spoke about during his opening remarks. We allocated $4.48 million of that $10 million. And then this proposed budget includes a spending plan that will obligate some of those revenues that we're expecting to receive in 23-24. So here's kind of an overview of that spending plan. So there's $27.1 million that we're proposing to obligate from the annual revenues that we're anticipating to receive. Of that $27.1 million, there is one-time appropriations of $18.7 million, and then ongoing expenditures of about $8.4 million. You can see the different categories that are made up of that $27.1 million. A majority of it going to park improvements, and then Public safety and fire EMS, I'd kind of probably combine those into public safety as the other major category, and then on down the line with forestry equipment, sidewalk, and so on. So again, estimating about 41.8 million in the first year. There's about 14.1 million that we left remaining. Again, the idea is that those funds would be categorized for future deferred maintenance costs because we want to build a reserve in this fund. We don't want to spend it all at the beginning and have no reserves built up in Measure H to fund these future deferred maintenance costs for these new improvements that we're building out in the city of those one-time costs. One of the other things I do want to point out is that 14.1 million that's remaining. So that includes all of these obligations for Measure H. It also includes the use of the amount to cover that 6.1 million structural deficit in the general fund. And then there'll also probably be some of that being used for any potential labor negotiation contracts that we have coming up. So those are still pending as well. And again, just the general fund portion of those labor negotiation contracts. This is probably a little small on the screen, but I did want to include in your PowerPoint presentations a list of all the actual adjustments that are included in the Measure H spending plan. So this is listed out by each department. So you can see all of the improvements that are going through this proposed Measure H spending plan. So it'll be broken out by department, whether it's ongoing or one time, and then which category each of those adjustments falls under. So you can see here if there's positions being added. In total, there are 55 positions being added. And then again, the total cost is about, or the total adjustments being added are about 27.1 million. Again, a lot of the departments that are receiving a lot of the adjustment funding or the spending plan funding are going to be in the fire department, police department, and then parks and recreation. Parks is getting a lot of funding to go out there and improve those parks that are in desperate need of improvement for the equipment and stuff out there for the playgrounds. So again, a lot of focus on Measure H and general fund, but we do have other major funds in the city. Our utility groups, our public works groups, all of the other funds do a lot of work for this city. So our water fund, you can see the operating expenditure budgets for these different categories. Now this is just the operating side. We'll talk a little bit about the capital improvement as well. For water fund, you can see $67 million. Our wastewater fund, about $48.8 million. Solid waste funds, surface transportation funds, and so on. Again, a lot of work being done by these departments in their respective areas in terms of their operating costs. Our internal service funds, so these are funds that we establish that provide goods and services to other internal departments. So that's where the internal service funds play out in the naming convention, employee benefits, fleet, IT, so our information technology department. And then you have a lot of our workers' compensation, liability insurance, property insurance. This chart's really just showing the fund balances and then the current budget and proposed budget. For fleet, I do want to point out that that is just kind of the beginning fund balance. It's showing a negative number, but that's just the fleet fund. It's not rolling up all the different replacement funds. So there are replacement funds for every single fund that has a vehicle. Those roll up into all the fleet funds. So the fleet fund is really not negative. Just to put your mind at ease, I know we're all worried about that. So again, our information, our ISF funds, a lot of work is done on these every year to create the internal service fund methodologies, appropriate them out to the different departments. We look at them annually, definitely paying attention to the fund balances and then how much we need to charge out to each of the departments internally. This last chart here is just to kind of give you a scope of how much the city has in terms of all funds and all their budgets and all their operating expenses. So this has grown quite a bit since from when I started here eons ago. 525, well, let's call it $526 million budget here in the city of Modesto. Of that, $184 million is the general fund. We've added in the Measure H spending plan expenditures at about $27 million. But you can see that general fund and then the enterprise funds with water and wastewater are really the bulk of the operating expenditure budgets for the city each year. On the capital improvement program side, so this capital improvement program, it's adopted annually. There are over 180 total projects in the CIP for the new fiscal year. 13 of these projects are classified as new. They're increasing the budget by about $13.38 million. You can see the breakdown there in terms of the funding sources for all the new projects. This is something that went to a joint planning commission finance committee meeting where then they recommended it moving on forward to council for approval as part of the budget adoption. A lot of these projects are going to be in utility funds as part of the CIP, streets projects, sewer operation projects. That's where a majority of our projects are in terms of the capital improvement program for the city. Before I go on to the staff recommendations, because I know I get cut off every year because everyone wants to go home, I do have to thank you, Mayor, Council, for all of your work and input through this budget process. I know it's probably not the most exciting thing, but I do appreciate all of the attentiveness and the questions that you asked this year. Really thoughtful questions and insightful during the entire process. I have to thank the city manager for his support through this process, the deputy city manager, and then all of the department staff for all of their hard work, because I know this year was not easy. Even though we were getting funding and we weren't making reductions, the amount of effort they put into creating these new programs was not lost upon me and I'm sure the city manager. So they put a ton of effort into it, so I have to thank them. And I need to thank my staff. Everyone's short staff, I know it, so I shouldn't even say that, but I have to thank my staff, Marvin Chan, and especially thank Casey Culbertson, because I know you guys look at me and think, oh, he's the budget manager, but Casey is the rock star of our division. She did all the work. Without her, this wouldn't have got done. So special thanks to Casey Culbertson for all of her hard work in this budget process. So now I will answer any questions you might have.
All right.
Thank you.
You very much. Does council have any questions of staff? Councilmember Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Steve, for your presentation. I have about 4 different questions I need to ask. And I think we on the council understand our deficit and our surplus. But there again, take me through, does all of the departments end up having a deficit every year? Are there certain departments that are higher deficits than others?
So
in general,
in terms of the general fund, the way it really works in the general fund is that departments are really funded by the tax revenues coming in. There is not any particular general fund department that is operating in a surplus. There are some divisions that are close within a department, like I'd say maybe building permits is close, but none of them are operating in a surplus, because again, the idea behind the general fund is that you're being funded by the taxpayer dollars or fees that you generate as a whole to provide those services to the citizens.
Okay, thank you. And then explain to the public out here, so if we have a deficit in our general fund, in our departments, but we end up with a surplus. So I know that there's probably people out there in the audience that are scratching their head. If you have a deficit, how can you end up with a surplus?
Sure.
Explain that.
So when we talk about the deficit, it's a structural budgeted deficit. So the idea behind that is that when we budget, we have to budget for our full estimated cost. So salaries, benefits, we have to budget like that position's going to be filled, whether it's a police officer or whatever, because there's a potential that it could be filled. Where we get the surplus at the end of the year is because we might have vacancy savings. So that position didn't end up being filled. So that gives us savings in our expenditures. We may have additional revenues come in that we didn't anticipate. So that gives us more revenues to the good. So all of those things combine where maybe we have this budgeted structural deficit at the beginning of the year of $6 million. But then throughout the year, we have vacancy savings, additional revenue come in that contribute to that surplus at the end of the fiscal year, where we then come back to you and say, hey, we have carryover reserves.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question is on our innovation fund, our unassigned reserves, we're going instead of third, fourth.
Mm-hmm.
I have some real concerns about deferred maintenance. We have over, I think over $100 million of deferred maintenance that we need to do. And I'm really concerned about our pension trust. I know that years ago we got in trouble in our pensions, and we really are, in the past, have been really working hard to bring that down. So my question is, on our innovation fund that we have now, could that fund be transferred over to the emergency reserves or pension or deferred maintenance if we needed to transfer those over at any time?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if council made that decision, they could. Yeah, definitely.
So they're not locked in?
No. Yeah, none of that would be locked in. As long as council makes the decision that they want to move those to another area, council can make that decision. Okay. It's not locked in.
And then my last question on Measure H, on homeless, I think we got about 500,000 that we've put towards the homeless. And I think people need to understand that a lot of times that 500,000 can turn into 3 or 4 million because we do have partners that we team up with, and that becomes almost like seed money for us to go out to get more money to help our homeless. So in reality, correct me if I'm wrong, in reality that $500,000 that we're putting towards homeless, when it's all said and done, can be several millions of dollars. Am I correct?
Yeah, it can. And then just to mention too, I mean, that's not all the homeless funding that we do provide in the proposed budget. I mean,
right.
we have, excuse me, I'm trying to look at my numbers here. So we have the $595,000 there. We also have money that we put with the Quick Wins funding. That was additional funding for park rangers and equipment. Then we also have funding that we're leveraging, $20 million from various funding sources through ARPA, CDBG, permanent local housing allocations. We have additional $2.7 million from various sources across the city that we're leveraging, an additional $1.86 million from funds outside the city. Right. So we're doing it across other areas as well. So, you know, we have over $30.4 million in city funds across various funding sources in the city that we're putting towards homelessness.
Right, and those monies, like you said, can be leveraged out to
Correct.
Get more money. So that's probably one area more so than any other area in our budget that we can really leverage. I know in our last presentation, our last meeting, I think we've leveraged about $33 million over several years and end up having about $180 million that we've used for our homeless and camp to home and other transitional housing and everything. So I just want to make sure that the citizens know that we do leverage as much money as we can, especially in our homeless, to get more funds out there to help our low income and our homeless.
Definitely.
Thank you for your report, and I want to congratulate staff. I think at our budget meeting, you guys did a great job explaining everything. But I think it's important that our citizens just really understand, you know, some basic accounting information on the deficit, and then you have a surplus. How does that work out? But I want to thank you for your team for everything you guys do.
Thank you.
And I just real briefly want to expand a little bit on your comment about the homeless funding. And while it does look low in the initial Measure H spending plan, many of our initiatives are tied up in one-time funds. And so as those one-time funds start to diminish, then we will have to be making decisions of whether we're going to want to continue to fund them ongoing, which is where you will see Measure H come into play. It didn't make sense for us to transfer those funds into ongoing expenses until the one-time funds were expended. That's why you see the lower number.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from council members? All right. Seeing none, I will open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public that would like to come forward regarding item 25?
Loretta Cart. Yes, I would like to ask something. I don't know if I'm doing. You rascal, you can hear me. We can't hear back there. Anyway, is this the one, say for instance, now I have to pay taxes. So then there's a measure under the taxes that if I had work done at my home. So rather than put it on my taxes, they put it on that part under the taxes where it has to be paid separate. Would that be with this that you're speaking of? Do you even know what I'm talking about? Whenever we're... No. Okay, Sue, whenever you pay your taxes, we have our tax bills on, well, whenever I had work done at the house. I had my taxes, regular taxes, but then underneath the company that did work for me, put it on, they said measure for taxes, where the money goes to the tax bills.
Okay, I'm not sure exactly what
Then would he be,
resources you
then,
used. Maybe, Stephen, if you can attempt.
because that's what I want to know, what that money goes to, and I don't know how to find. I've tried for about 5 years to find out, and I've never been able to find out. Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any other members of the public that would like to speak?
Hi, my name's Howard Carmen. I've been up here once before today, so I'll try to make it quick. I'm not savvy at too much stuff, but we're talking about the major funding and the program overview. And I'd like to thank David for the mentioning of the homeless. Homeless isn't going to ever go bye-bye. It's going to just escalate. And there's a lot of people out there so proud that to get their vouchers. This is very important because I'm saying it national news. I get killed at it, but I don't care, you know. Anyways, I'd like to put it to the board or supervisor and each one to put it under advisement that the fact is it does no good if the person doesn't have a job. It does no good to give someone a voucher, move into the place, and then thrash it if somebody has done the hard work to put that person in and to do drugs and alcohol and bring everybody in that they want to bring in. It's not good for the community. It's not good for anybody. I think we need to police the amount of people that get it. As far as the major funding and as far as the overview program, I look at it this way. Loretta's right. I don't know because I was thinking about the same thing she did about those taxes thing or whatever she was talking about because I see that happening year after year. I've been up here for about 11 years now. I've been waiting for my voucher for about 7 or 8 years. And I have money, and I don't have a place to live. I just want a place to kick back. And, you know, they stole the property where I was at, and that was a thing, and it was very hard to find it since then. So there's going to have to be some A and Z in there to where you guys need to come to some kind of compromise that they're able to keep these places because they're getting thrashed or they go to jail or they go to prison, and then that puts them back to square one. And that thing that you just gave them for the voucher does absolutely no person no good. And does not look for good for the community or anything. On the last basis, you talk about the other, the switch gears here on the major funds and the overall program improvement plan. I just been trying for the last year to get them to put up the 2 big lights that you guys put on 6th Street to be safety so they're not hitting their high beams just to get from I Street all the way through that 132. Thank you for building the light on L Street. That's excellent, because when the light's green, they just hit it at 70 to 90 miles an hour. I've been reporting it, nothing's happened. No officers, because I'm sitting out there all night long waiting for an officer to even just come by. You guys are very busy. My whole point is this, is that also the drain system. The drain system between L Street and K all run from K Street, comes around from K Street, and then hits L Street. Those streets run into 6th Street, okay? So you can envision those two streets and the amount that's coming from the roofs of the drains of the properties that are commercial going into the gutter system, and you take the amount of rain that we had. They just had to fix over there on 6th Street, great big mudslide. Thank God that we had Caltrans, and they had that great big drain system. It was so bad during the wintertime, they couldn't come up with any system what to handle on this. I've asked and asked to have them clean that drain system. I went by several times. I've reported it, and it's not getting done. There's got to be a system, because it's coming all the way from L Street, and it's flooding. And these people are hydroplaning through this place. There's been so many accidents, and much less about right on K Street right there, that there's been 5 or 7 accidents right there. So during this project that you're deciding, I'm asking the council and you, Mayor, as well, in this budget to, L Street is a stop sign. They don't stop. They just go right straight from 5th Street all the way through 6th Street and then to 7th, or 7th to 6th Street. I've watched it time and time again. I've watched cars overpass after them, flipping everything. I'm just asking you to consider that, and also consider what she's talking about, the taxes. I don't know exactly what that is, but I was just thinking about it, and I have no air in that area. So, but thank you for your time.
All right, anyone else from the public that would like to address this item? Seeing none, are there any members online? Confirming no one online. Councilmember Escutia Brayton, is there anyone present at your location that would like to speak on this item?
No, there is not, Mayor. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I will close public comments. Are there any council members that would like to make further comments? Councilmember Bavaro.
Thank you, Mayor. With regards to Measure H and the funding of Measure H, just like to say that the monies that are with the sales tax that was passed in this budget reflects exactly the promises that we made to the public who voted on this. The money is going to public safety, it's going to deferred maintenance, it's going to blight and homelessness. So the promises that were made tonight, the promises are being kept. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Ricky.
Thanks, Mayor. I just wanted to really thank the staff and my fellow council members for coming together on this budget this year. It was a real challenge, but I felt like we came together and really created a good cohesive plan that's going to make Modesto better. And that's what we've all been trying to do. So I just want to say thanks, everybody, and thanks to the voters for approving Measure H, because it is going to improve our city dramatically.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to share the same sentiments. Thank you to your entire department for everything that they did to crunch the numbers, to make it make sense. And I also want to thank our Councilmember Bavaro for bringing up the point that this is exactly what they asked for, and this is exactly what they're going to get. And lastly, no, I don't think I want to go to your birthday. I think I'd rather you stay right here doing what you're doing.
All righty. Any other comments from council members?
Just quickly, Mayor, I don't want to restate what has already been said so eloquently by my peer colleague council members, but again, this was only done through the collective effort and hard work that everyone put in, including the council, the mayor, the city manager, and personnel. But like has already been said, the city of Modesto and our citizenry really will benefit from this hard work, and I'm just glad we're to this point. Well done, everyone.
All right, thank you. I'll just make a very brief comment. Today, right before I was returning to City Hall for this meeting, I went through McDonald's to get a drink, and he said, okay, $1.08, and he goes, oops, $1.09. And I said, I know what that's for. And he goes, I didn't vote for it. I didn't vote for it. And I said, well, I'm glad that 63% of people did. I said, I did vote for it. I'm your mayor, and I really want to make this city better. And he was, I don't know what he thought, but I wished I would have asked him if he voted at all. Then I could have given him my lecture about making sure that he votes. So I need to go through again and make sure that he votes, whether he votes for this or not. But we've thanked a lot of people tonight. I want to reiterate that. But I really want, and it sounds like you right there deserve an extra vote of thanks. So I really appreciate you putting in the time for this, and for Stephen, for you recognizing her. But I really want to thank the residents of our community. They are truly the people that made this happen. And Vice Mayor Ricky mentioned that, and I want to reiterate that just today we met with 2 people in my office with our chief of police. They expressed concerns and brought pages and pages of concerns that residents have, of quotes and things that they're concerned about, but they both supported Measure H, and we just reassured them once again that we really are going to work to improve our community. And sounds like everyone on this council is very appreciative. Thank you once again, Stephen. And I will have a little bit of reading to do here. I have a resolution approving the adoption of the fiscal year 2023 annual and multi-year operating budgets in the 2023-24 capital improvement program for the City of Modesto and the related interfund transfers. A resolution approving the budget principles, policy on general fund unassigned carryover reserves, and the operating budget policy is outlined in the fiscal year 2023-24 final proposed budget. A resolution amending the classification plan for the City of Modesto to create new classifications and amend existing classifications, and a resolution amending the position allocation for fiscal year 2023-24 as adopted in the operating budget. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
A motion by Councilmember Wright and a second by Vice Mayor Ricky. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Ricky.
Aye.
Councilmember Bavaro.
Aye.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Wright.
Aye.
Councilmember Scutia Brayton.
Aye.
And Mayor Zwalin.
Aye. It carries 6-0. Thank you very much again. Are there any matters too late for the agenda? Seeing none, I am calling this meeting of the City Council to be adjourned.